Hi, everybody. We're going to get started in just a second here. Hi, everybody. I just want to welcome everybody to the lab lecture for today. To go over the agenda of what's going to go on, we are going to talk about lab worksheet number 3. Shouldn't take that long to discuss because this week's lab worksheet is pretty short. And then we will do Q&A where you can ask me whatever you want. I'm actually going to start with a little bit of Q&A before we do this. So, in continuation where we left off last week, there was a bit of a discussion about Rate My Professor, where we all talked about, like, what the page is and how silly it is. And so it got me thinking, and I went looking, and I was like, I don't know if I've checked this for a while. So here's my Rate My Professor. I am very proud of my 3.2 out of 5 because I always enjoy the opportunity for my students to rate me like an Amazon product. And as you'll see, my ratings are, they're all kind of all over the place. And on May 2nd, before we had this lecture, somebody gave me a 1. And maybe it was deserved. I'll let you guys decide this. But the reason that I'm actually putting this on screen is twofold. One is Rate My Professor is pretty bullshit. And the reason is because you only have a scale of 1 to 5. Like, there's more nuanced reasons to give me a 1 than this. But I did want to point out some things. So, one, you should always be critical of things that you read. For example, right here is a comment about how quizzes aren't telling you which questions you got wrong. So that's demonstrably false, I just want to point out. Because if you go to your quizzes section and you click on your quiz, you should be able to see the answers, but only after the quiz has been closed, okay? That's really important. While the quiz is going, I can't let you see the answers because then you would go to your Discord, which it even says right here. Sharing answers on Discord. And then it says that after here in parentheses, we were allowed to, which is another thing I want to bring up. Yes, you are allowed to use Discord. In fact, I would encourage you to do it. Make sure that you are using all the resources at your disposal. I don't know if the student has the Discord plug. If you're in the chat, go ahead and plug your Discord again so you can get students in there. But please, please, please do use the Discord. Chat all you want about all the answers. This is another reason why I'm not actually in your Discord, is because I feel like if I show up there, everybody will suddenly get quiet. Oh my goodness, the professor's here. Shh! Don't tell him we're sharing answers. And like, I don't give a shit. You guys can share answers. It's fine. I've designed the class with this in mind. But yeah. And then I particularly like this part. Would not take this guy again. Well, I mean, I will let you guys be the judge of that. There we go. So that's the owner of the Discord server. I'm not sure which student that is, but I've been seeing the name Cloudy go around a lot, so I believe that that is correct. And yeah, make sure that you are using that resource because it is helpful. I did just unlock quiz number 2 answers because that closed on the 11th. I do have to wait an extra day in case people take it late. I do have some people that take the quiz late and have a reason for doing so. And then when it closes for them, I can unlock everything. So it's now unlocked. Quiz number 2 is unlocked. For the Saturday quiz, I hate putting quizzes on the weekends, and I didn't want to. But in order for me to be able to get you the answers for that quiz, I needed to put it on a day that wasn't Friday, because I don't want people staying up all Friday. I figure Saturday is probably a little better than a Friday night quiz. So please do the quiz as early as you can for Chapter 6. And then on Sunday, I will unlock all the quiz results so that you can see that, and then you can review. We'll talk a little bit more about what the exam is going to entail tomorrow, so that more, because I know more people come to the lectures than these lab things. But the general gist of it is, if you understand how the quizzes work, then the only major difference between the quizzes and the exams is going to be the exams will only put one question on the screen at a time, and you can't go back and read. You can't go back, so you can only go forward through the exam. It'll put one question on the screen. You answer it. You go to the next one. You answer it. You go to the next one, etc. I don't actually know if it randomizes the order of the questions. I'm going to try and program it so that it doesn't do that, so you get them in roughly the same order of the content, so you're not flipping between Chapter 1 and then Chapter 6 and then Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, because that'll waste a lot of time. But just like your quizzes, it's an open resource. You can use anything you want. You can use each other. I would strongly recommend against doing that during your exam because it's timed. Talk about it after you have done the exam, and probably not during. That's my honest advice. Of course, you can do whatever you want to. I just feel like if I was taking a quiz and I had a timer counting down and somebody didn't respond to me on Discord right away, I would panic, and that would be really bad. So, but that's just how I am. Can you show how to see the quiz answers after the quiz closes? I don't actually know if I can show that, honestly. So, I could show you what I do. But what I think that you do is, so this is what it looks like for me. So normally I have this button checked. And so what this means is that you can only see your score after the quiz is done. And then there's all these other things here that can be shown, but I can't. But what I can do is, so when I unlock the quiz, I do this. So I turn off the restriction. And then now you do, I think you go into assignments. Oops, that's just what classes I'm teaching. Oh, right, it hides the menu when I'm making a quiz. I'm not even in the right class, because I was doing something else in this before. So I think that you go to assignments, and then you click on your quiz, and it should show you your result, kind of like if you were taking the quiz, but you already did it. And then it will show you all of the questions and what you scored. Now, unfortunately, on all the math problems, like, Canvas doesn't do it partial credit. So I've been trying to make these, like, lots of little point problems so that if you miss one or two on 2 attempts, like, you're gonna be okay. Yeah, if you can put a how-to and then, like, put it in the discussion form so that I can have that information too. Because I'm not a student. I have a student view. What the hell was that sound? Was that my cat? I have a student view, but since I didn't take the quiz, I can't, like, tell it, oh, I have a quiz. What does it look like? It shows me sort of what you see. So for the exam, regarding like the fact that you can't go back and change your answer, if you don't know how to do the problem and you push next, then the problem goes away. Now, keep in mind, and I don't remember if I wrote this on the syllabus. I believe that I did, though. There is a small amount of extra credit available on the exam, so you don't have to answer every question to get a perfect score. So if it's 75 points, I make it out of 83. So you could skip like 3 or 4 questions, just like, oh, I don't know them, and you'd still get over 100%. The reason that I have to put that on there for exams is because I need to curtail the amount of information spread that goes on. Because again, I know that you guys are using Discord, and I'm encouraging you to do it. But at the same time, I am trying to assess you. You do still have 2 tries. You do still have 2 tries to take the exam. I am trying to assess you, and in order to get a good understanding of where you are in the class and how much you know, I do have to restrict you in some capacity. And this is the way that our department has decided to do this is, just one question at a time, and you go through it one time and you're fine. Because this is a online class that not everybody signed up for, I'm still giving you 2 attempts to do it because, I mean, why not? Like, what do I care if you take 1 or 2 attempts? Like, things are difficult enough is really all that I have for that. And if I can help alleviate that stress a little bit, then that's a really simple way to do that. And sure, grades are going to be a little higher at the end of the quarter. So what? That's fine. I'll give you a B plus instead of a B. Like, whatever. I don't know if I deserve a 5. I mean, a 5 would be like, I bake you cookies every day. Yeah, because learning chemistry online is very difficult, and nobody signed up for this. Remember the orientation video? Nobody wanted this. Now that I'm like 5 weeks into this, like, me teaching this online is actually not awful from my end when I'm in front of the camera. And by camera, I mean headset. But as soon as, like, I'm done with this lecture, and then I have to go and grade stuff and create stuff, I just become unwound. It's just like, oh my god, I have so much left to do. I'm I have something on my screen here that I want to share, but it has some stuff that I don't want to share because it just has student names for CDS stuff. Let me see if I can capture a window here. This probably won't look like too much to you. So window capture 2. And I want Notepad. Yeah, I use Notepad because I'm a schmuck. So this is my list of things to do. And this is just like, I updated this today. Oh, actually, you know what? This is done because I did this last night. But I had to write your midterm. I had to grade your lab. I have to fix some slides. And it's just like, oh my god. See, Notepad to program games is fine. But Notepad is just like me typing out random stuff. Like, I should just be using a piece of paper for this, to be honest. Okay, so I want to get to here. Let's see here. Do you know what they mean by live stream, online, or hybrid? Okay. I actually learned this yesterday, so I'm happy to discuss this. Live stream is basically what we are doing right now. However, the live stream designation is specifically for people who are live streaming over a service that they can't upload their video to. In other words, imagine if YouTube did not save our video after. That would be live stream. So you have to be there to see the lecture, or you miss it and it's gone forever. Online is closer to what our class is right now. In other words, I have a component where I post the videos online, but an online lecture may or may not have a live stream component to it. So yeah, like Zoom or something. I'm like Skype. Who the hell uses Skype anymore, right? I don't know if Discord does video, but I could see that being a thing too. So online, I think, is going to be the most common one because there are just so many services, and people like to put their lectures on something like YouTube so that we have them all available for you guys forever. I don't know how many people are going back and looking at the videos afterward. I can see that, like, lecture number 1 was viewed like 160 times, and I only have 72 students, so clearly some people are looking at it again. But I do hope that it is helpful to have these online. And if it's not, like, that's feedback that would be useful. At the end of the quarter, I'll have, like, a little survey that you can, like, did you go back and watch the videos? And you can just tell me. And then finally, hybrid. Hybrid is going to be a little weird in the fall quarter. If you see a class that says hybrid, there is an in-person on-campus component associated with it, which means that, yes, you would have to go into the campus. Now, obviously right now, with what's going on out there, and I'm looking outside my window, and I don't see a wood chipper, so that's good. But what's going on outside is completely unpredictable at this point. So any classes that say hybrid may just suddenly become online. I don't have a good, like, prediction, I guess I would say, of anything that is hybrid. But there are some classes that are... Yeah, there you go. That makes sense. So nursing, Amtech, welding, anything that has to do with, like, Boeing, those are all the things that are definitely hybrid right now. Like, nursing just got a call to go back to work, and that program has resumed. For the chemistry department, I can tell you this because we had a meeting yesterday. I believe all of our classes are online or live stream, except for an organic lecture, which is debatable. Yeah, don't give up. Like, I think all of us are understanding that, like, this is rough. Like, anyway, I do want to talk a little bit about the lab before we get too off track. So let's talk about lab number 3. Lab number 3 is something called Beer's Law, which we could all use a beer right now, I'm sure. Unfortunately, there is no beer in this lab. The way that Beer's Law works, and I'm actually just going to get this video out and show it to y'all. That's in the modules section. Beer's Law is the relationship between how light behaves in a solution when you beam through it. And actually, this video doesn't do what I want to. So Beer's Law. Let's see if I can find a good video on here. I want to actually show the solutions. Yeah, here we go. This works. Okay. I don't need him talking. I just need something in the background so that you can kind of see what's going on. All right. So what Beer's Law does is it attempts to explain the relationship between how optically opaque a solution is, in other words, how much light goes through it, and how concentrated it is. And the way that we do that is we use these little glass tubes called cuvettes. Now, you use plastic also. And what you do is you beam light through them. And the amount of light that makes it through the solution is read by a detector. The detector then says, oh, okay, I saw this much light, but you sent me this much. Therefore, this is how much must have been absorbed. And then it spits out a number. That's the gist of it. When you plot your data with your solutions, it turns out the relationship between absorbance and the concentration of your solution is linear. And so this is a sample device. I've never actually seen this specific model. This is way fancier and more expensive than anything we have. But what you would have had in the lab would have been like a little tiny square brick with a slot in it that has a beam that goes left to right. And the beam shoots white light that passes through a prism. And when the light passes through the prism, it selects a specific wavelength that then goes through the solution. And the solution will either absorb it or it won't. Now, I have a bit of discussion in the lab procedure about some important caveats to how this works. And so there's actually a lot going on here in the laboratory that I'm just kind of glossing over. So if you read this discussion, what you're going to see is that there's a bunch of formulas that relate how the light behaves in the solution to a bunch of numbers. And so the first thing that I want to talk about is what's called transmittance. And so let me not turn this up, but zoom this in. And my paper's a little off the screen here. All right. So the first term is called transmittance. Transmittance is how much light is transmitted through. So if 80% of my light makes it through, the transmittance would be 80%. If 10% of my light made it through, the transmittance would be 10%. Now, we take this number, transmittance, that we calculate based on how much light makes it through divided by how much light we sent, and we put it in this formula to get a different value, A. And my screen kind of froze there, sorry. So A is the absorbance, and it is just the negative log of transmittance. And the reason that we do this is so that we get a number that is smaller and we can graph. So like if 10% of my light went through, T would be 10% or 0.1. the negative log of 0.1 is 1. If 1% of the light went through, then my percentage would be 0.01, negative log of that is 2, and then so on and so forth. If none of the light went through, A is infinity. I do have a picture of what this looks like for a solution that has an absorbance of 1, 3, and 5. As you can see, the light source is on the left. For something that has a really high absorbance, barely any light makes it. For something that has a relatively low absorbance, a fair amount of the light makes it. The reason that we care about this A value is because this relationship is the one that we are going to use. This is the Beer-Lambert law. And the Beer-Lambert law says that if you have a dilute solution whose absorbance is less than a certain value, so that value is 1.5, then the relationship between absorbance and concentration C is linear. And what that means is, if I go here, can I put this up? Is this the right? Yeah, there we go. Oh, that's not at all going to help me, but... Oh, that's not what I want. I don't know what that was, actually. Alright, so if I put this up here, and apparently minimize my streaming service, there we go. So these three variables are going to be the ones that we're working with, and then A is the absorbance. And so the first thing we want to talk about is this one. So this is the concentration. And so a plot of absorbance versus concentration is going to have a straight line. Now, this only works up to about A equals 1.5. After A equals 1.5, what ends up happening is this starts happening. And it no longer becomes linear. It just sort of tapers off. And so the relationship is only good for solutions that are dilute enough that their absorbance is 1.5 or less. Now, that means that you can measure any solution you want to. You just got to add a little water to it, and then its absorbance will be below 1.5. Now, if this is a linear relationship, then it would follow the equation y equals mx, where m is the slope, right? Well, if y is the absorbance and x is the concentration, then the slope must just be everything else. And so that's these two things. So when you plot out your data, the slope of your line is going to be whatever this epsilon is times whatever this L thing is. First thing we want to talk about is the path length. And for the path length, I'm going to go back to the video to show you these tubes again, which you can't see because I need to make it bigger. All right. So here are the tubes that we use in colorimetry or spectrophotometry. I can't say the word. And you'll notice that they're all the same length. We've actually selected a length for these tubes of 1 centimeter. 1, so the math works out, and 2, so we have a standard. So, in the equation here, whenever you see L, you're going to enter 1 centimeter, and it basically goes away. So, in other words, the slope is really just epsilon. And now we have to figure out what epsilon is. And so what this is called is the molar absorptivity. Absorptivity. I was going to do absorptivity or something like that. Constant coefficient, whatever. It's all the same. And what this means is, in other words, it is how much light is absorbed. And the bigger the number, the more absorptive it is. So when you plot your line, you're going to get a number there. And that number is going to correspond to the slope. And the bigger the number is, the bigger the slope, the bigger the number, the more it absorbs. Now, if we go back to this video right here, if these three things were different substances and they were all the same concentration, and I asked you which one has the higher molar absorptivity constant, then you would say that the one that is the darkest has the highest absorptivity, because if these are all 1 molar solutions, this one absorbs the most light. This one would have a medium constant, and this one would have a very small constant. That goes there. Okay. Where's my cursor? Why am I not on the pad? Oh, because I'm using the eraser and it doesn't show up. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about are units of this equation. It's always important to consider units because we want to make sure that we understand what's going into the equation and what's coming out. A concentration is always expressed in moles per liter. And the length of the tube is going to be expressed in centimeters. This right here is going to have units that just simply cancel out the other things. So what I'm going to do is put the units opposite to where they are, so that when I am done multiplying, these cancel out, and these cancel out, and these cancel out. And so what we end up with is a dimensionless quantity for absorbance. Your absorbance will be a number. It won't have any units, and that's not a typo. We've designed this equation so that all the units just kill each other. And the outcome that you get at the end is just a number. Now, that being said, it's important to remember the other units that exist in the equation, because I'll be asking you, like, what is the molar absorptivity constant? Tell me the units and the value, and you want to make sure that you do that. So that's the gist of Beer's law. As you put stuff into the detector, it will give you an absorbance. If you know the concentration that you are putting in there, so if you know this and it tells you this one, you can start making a graph out of that data, and then it will plot a line of best fit for you. So a lot of this lab is going to be very similar to lab number 1, where you had to create a plot with the sugar solutions. And so the only difference here is that I give you seemingly less data, and then you have to make a graph out of it. So if I go back to, is it here? Yeah, there we go. So I do have pre-experiment questions, which I ask you to just basically do the experiment using sample stuff. And then I'm going to give you some solutions, and you're going to have to dilute them. So using this stock solution, if I dilute it in this manner, what's the final concentration? Hopefully you're able to do that, because we did that in Chapter 6, right? You use the dilution formula, you type in the concentration, and then you create a chart out of this. And so your chart, or here's where your data chart will go, and then your graph will go over here, just like experiment number 1. And then finally, there's some analysis questions. You'll notice that there's only 3 tabs this time, which means that there is a lot less for you to do, but the stakes are a little higher now. And so I do want you to describe your answers in a little more detail. Again, if you overflow the text box, you're typing a little too much, so you can pare it back a little bit if you write more than 3 lines. But I do want you to explain any answers that you state, basically. Okay, that's pretty much the lab. There is one video that is linked to it in the lab, and it shows how to determine a phenomenon called lambda max. That is strictly for the operation of the machine and is not super relevant to this worksheet. I linked it to you just so you could see how the detector works and like which wavelength it picks, because the wavelength of light that you choose is very important. And the reason for that is because of how light works. And we're talking about this in Chapter 6 right now. Let me put the color wheel on the screen here. If you have something that is blue, the reason that your eyes see it as blue is because light is either being emitted from that, like on your screen right now, or if you look at something on your desk that's blue, light is being reflected off of the surface of that. That ends up being of a blue wavelength. The other colors are scattered or absorbed, and you don't see them. With a solution, it's a little bit different. If you beam light through something and it absorbs a certain color, the opposite color becomes the primary color you see. And opposite colors are what are called complementary colors, and color theory has all of these colors scaled around this wheel. So in other words, if your solution was green, it's because it's absorbing red light. If your solution is red, it's because it's absorbing blue, or maybe green, or so on. Okay, so based on the color of the solution that you're working with, you will know which light it will absorb, and you can put the detector in a certain spot. And these wavelengths on the side are a guide for you. So if your solution was red, for example, you would need to absorb greenish blue, and you'd say, okay, I'm going to set the detector to 500 nanometers. The reason for this is because if you try and beam a light through a sample and it doesn't absorb that thing, then you don't get a signal, and then you get no result, and that's no good. And the worksheet talks about that. That's really all I can think of to talk about for the worksheet. It's pretty straightforward. We can do a few examples problems, but I don't really think that that's super useful. So let me just do the... Oh, shoot. Somebody didn't select a new layer. Let's see here. Boop. So for instance, if I had... Oops, I'm not writing in black. There we go. If I had this equation, and I asked you determine C if epsilon is, I don't know, like, this is just basically algebra. And I feel like pretty much we don't really need to do many examples like that. But if you had to solve for C here, then I would solve for it up here. So A is epsilon times L. And so there's the absorbance, and I'd multiply that by, or divide that, sorry, by the molar absorptivity constant. And then I times that by the path length, which is always 1 centimeter. This unit and this unit cancel out. And when I do this calculation, I would get the concentration of the solution, which is 0.438, 52.5. And so this would equal the concentration, so this is so I get this number, and because I am dividing by this unit right here, that's the same as multiplying by its reciprocal, which means that these are the units of my answer. And you're going to see this often, that the numbers that you get for concentrations for these problems are very, very small. And the reason for that is because epsilon for some substances is very, very large. In one of the experiments at the end, I talk about crystal violet, and the epsilon value for crystal violet is like 11,000. It might even be 111,000. Which basically means that if you get that on your hand, you will be crystal violet purple forever. It's just that's that strong of a dye. You too can be purple forever. Alright, that's the lab, I think. Very straightforward and similar to what you did in week 1, just with a different sort of flavor to it. If anybody has any questions, let me know. I realize that you probably haven't looked through the documentation that much because it's only been online for a day. But if you have read over it and you are confused about any specific aspect of it, now's a great time to ask me that. Other things you can do are to ask Sam. Oh, when is the due date? I should put that at the bottom of the thing, shouldn't I? Hold on. Today's announcements. So this is worksheet 3. Worksheet number 3 due. And I already put the due date. It's Thursday, but I forgot what number that is. Tomorrow's the 14th, so that's 21. Thursday, 21 May. There you go. I forgot to put that up there. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's due next week, just like every other one. I'm still working on grading your number 2 worksheets. I have not gotten very far. I wish that I could say that I have. But between meetings and creating all of these worksheets, and also depression, like I get depressed just like you guys do, believe it or not. It's been a very hectic weekend, so. Oh, that's a good catch, yeah. Like, shit, I don't want to mess that one up. So this is actually Monday the 18th. You guys, what's the calendar? I don't know. I don't know how to calendar. Saturday is the 16th, right? Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Okay, good. I'm actually very bad with days. Like, I can do algebra all day long. I can do mental arithmetic in my head super easily. And then it'll be like, what day is 2 days after tomorrow? And I'll be like, like I just lose track of time so easily when we're outside. Oh, I just go to work and it's like, hey, it's Friday. And I'm like, really? I didn't know that. The only day of the week I recognize is Monday because that's the one I have to recognize so that I can, so I know, oh, I need to go to work. It's because I'm secretly an 85-year-old senile man. That picture of me was when I was 64 or whatever. Whatever the song is. Anyway, if you have other questions relating to the class, more than happy to answer them. Today is kind of the last chance that you have before exam number 1 to ask questions in a public setting and see them worked out. You are always welcome to ask me questions over email. However, it is harder for me to explain stuff to people over email without having the real-time aspect, so you can't follow along. You just sort of get the answer. My short-term memory is terrible bad. It's so bad. My long-term memory is actually really good. But short-term, it's just like, huh? What were we talking about? And I've always been that way. So it's not just the drugs and alcohol. I mean, that's not something I would do. Other questions? Otherwise, I might just ramble about myself all day. Nobody needs that. So I'm going to leave the stream for just a second. I'm going to leave it up. I'm just going to go fill my water because I just finished it. But when I come back in like 2 or 3 minutes, I'll answer any questions that are on the screen. If there isn't anything, we'll call it a day, and I'll get back to grading because I have plenty of that to do. So I'm gonna leave. I'll put it on the title card, and I'll put the break timer up, just so that I'm not airing a still image. I only sort of know how all this streaming stuff goes. There we go. So I'll start the timer. We'll turn on the music, and type anything in the chat, and I'll answer it when we get back. Haha, very funny. I did laugh, though. Anyone else for questions? Make sure you type in the chat. Oh, sadness. I was so close. So I prefer YouTube Live just because, like, I can use OBS to make it more professional looking. So, like, I can't make the screen look like this on Zoom. I just have more functionality on this thing. Yeah, I've gotten within one frame multiple times. I don't know if I can land right on it. I've gotten 9:59:99 and 10:00:01. So someday. But yeah, I strongly prefer this over Zoom because Zoom just feels really clunky. Zoom will capture my desktop if I minimize stuff, which, I mean, I don't have anything on my desktop that I want to hide other than, like, weird folder names like desktop shit and old desktop and random crap and then a photograph of me. Like, whatever. Like, I don't care if that shows up. But I can understand that being a privacy concern for other people. So I don't like that about it. It screws up with my microphone settings. Like, I really don't like that part about Zoom. After a meeting on Zoom, I went to talk to friends in Discord, and we spent 20 minutes trying to figure out why my mic sounded, like, way quieter, and it turned out that it had just overwritten my settings. So now I had to manually go in and do that, and fix that every time I have a meeting. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions, let me know. I'm willing to stick around. But if there's nothing else, we'll shut down the stream. Even just, like, casual stuff like this is fine. Like, that's kind of what the point of this is. It doesn't have to be about the class. It can be about just, I don't know, stuff that you just want answers to. Oh, that would drive me insane if it, like, interrupted me while I was giving a lecture. I would be so angry. Like, that is not okay. Like, update later. Update later is a thing. Yeah, that's a huge disturbance, because if everybody is just disconnected, then it's like, oh, now I gotta wait for everybody. And the thing about Zoom is that you gotta keep passing around, like, meeting IDs and stuff like that. I don't think I've ever gone to a Zoom meeting where the first link that was sent to me was correct. Like, for some reason, I always get a second Zoom ID. And like, use this one instead. And I'm like, why isn't it ever correct the first time? So imagine if, like, in my announcements, I had to post a Zoom link every time. That's why I like YouTube. YouTube's here forever. YouTube's never going to go under. And I feel like I can get more people to talk if I have you just typing it. Because, I mean, your generation and my generation are pretty similar, because I grew up when the internet was starting to be a thing. So typing online was, like, the biggest new thing in the 90s. And in 2010, now it's texting and using Discord and stuff like that. So it's evolved, but it's very similar. But it's something that we all have in common. And so, like, me typing questions and answering questions, totally fine. My anxiety doesn't do anything there. And I know a lot of my students have anxiety. I have anxiety. That's the lens that I come to all this through. Is like, if I were an anxious student, like I am, what would feel comfortable? Well, that's because the Arrhenius equation is like very complicated, and like for very complex problems, you could actually take days to solve them. And I'm talking like actual statistical mechanics, not anything we're gonna do in 163. Yeah, that's fair too. The delete key is a blessing, and by delete I mean backspace actually. Sometimes I wish that I could like type out what I want to say before I say it, because my brain goes way faster than my mouth does. Hooray! Wild inaccuracy. What was I trying to click on? That's what I wanted. Alright, let's do last call for questions. Anything else you need? Let me know in the chat. Oh man, you reminded me of a Heisenberg joke that I'm going to do tomorrow about the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which is terrible, of course. Yeah, that's that joke is where we're going with it. I don't know where I am, but I know exactly how fast I was going, or it's the other way around. I can't even get my own joke right. God, I'm the worst at joke. Can I edit this while I am? I cannot. Okay. Yeah, that's the joke. Do you know how fast you're going? But I know exactly where I am. And then where's my like Price is Right loser's horn for that? Because I mean, I feel like of anything, I gotta find it. There it is. I haven't heard that part of the joke. That's actually pretty funny. Alright, I'm gonna shut it down. If you sent me an email earlier today, I haven't gotten to it. I see like there's 3 or 4 emails from students in here. I just never have time to get to email before I start the lecture. Send me an email if you have any questions between now and the exam. During the exam, I can't really do much unless there are like obvious bugs or issues. But I can't answer questions about like, hey, I couldn't do this question. Not until the exam's over anyway. So let me know before Monday, and I'm happy to help. Make sure you go to Rate My Professor and give me a 1. Shit, I mean 5. Damn it. Oh, it's too late now. Have a good day.